Welcome back, Thrivers. It is officially our last episode of the month of August, which means it's monthly check-in time with Jodi. So here we are. And today I want to start out by saying that comparison is the thief of joy. How many times have we heard that? But that has really smacked me in the face, especially in this last week. Some of the conversations that I've had. I stepped back into the classroom to teach ag sales again for this fall semester. And here we are wrapping up summer. Guys, I'm not going to lie, August has been a tough one for me. And so, as I really started to think about what I wanted to share with you as we wrap up, we had 4 amazing guest episodes in August. We covered so much incredible wisdom and examples of thriving careers and career paths and choices that we can make and options and opportunities. But when it really comes down to it, I think that for me, even those amazing 4 episodes that we have had in August have contributed to a little bit of comparisonitis for Jodi. So I wanted to share that. I really found myself feeling like I'm not enough. I haven't been enough. I haven't worked hard enough this summer. I haven't really done enough. And I wanted to talk about that because I think that it's just so common. And we can look at, you can call it social comparison, but let's dive into comparison a little bit today because I have 5 steps that I believe we can all take to not only combat comparisonitis, as I call it, but also to really understand when it's happening to us and if it is productive or detrimental. Is it helping us or is it hurting us to compare? Is there times or are there times when comparing ourselves to others might help us? But then are there times, especially in today's world, that we are comparing ourselves to others to our great detriment and really kind of hurting our own abilities and progress and self-esteem and things like that? So let's dive in because, as I said, I think that I have really spent a couple weeks struggling, had just, a tough month in general. And then I'm looking around and saying, what am I doing? Am I fulfilling my purpose? Am I working hard enough? Am I where I'm supposed to be in life? Am I a good enough wife? Am I a good enough worker? What am I, what's my role with Jodi Speaks Life and who am I serving? And then, you talk with students and they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And I don't feel like I'm far enough along and I'm not doing the right things. I don't have the right internship. As young professionals, are we doing the right things to grow and become better professionals? As leaders, some of you are people leaders, and are you capable enough to lead and inspire others? But it always comes down to, am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I strong enough? Am I capable enough? Guys, we've got to talk about that with one another, and we have to really slow down and say, okay, what's the purpose of my comparison and why am I doing this? When I get down on myself, when I get a little bit sad or a little bit lonely or a little bit frustrated with what's going on in my life, do I sit down and open social media to scroll through it and compare myself to other people and go even deeper into this hole of comparisonitis? Or do I surround myself with the right people who can ask good questions and challenge me and remind me that, yes, Jodi, you are smart and capable and strong and all of these things. You're kind and compassionate. Maybe not always, but I hope I am when I'm supposed to be. So that is really the message, as we finish up the summer and we look at a fall season where many of us kind of gear back up into a either student mode and you want to finish strong, or you're gearing up into, a season at work where you've got promotions and opportunities to really grow and thrive. So, when we look at comparison from a negative aspect, let's just start there And we'll, as I like to say, let's hear the bad news first, and then we'll get on to the positive side. But what we do know, and research continues to share with us, is that too much social comparison, and I'm especially concerned about this for younger generations, where maybe we're not equipping our Gen Z and our Alpha Gen with the tools that we need from a character building experience. But we know that comparison leads to a great deal of not only unhappiness and low self-esteem, but depression and mental health issues that are ultimately sometimes life-threatening. And it leads on a day-to-day basis to things like jealousy and frustration, some hopelessness, a great deal of stress, and even anger. So, when we acknowledge that we are in a time and a place that is encouraging comparison and wants us to see the highlight reels of so many people that we don't truly know. We don't know celebrities and athletes and actors and these kinds of people, yet we want to compare our lives to theirs in what they have and how they live. And I find that to be really unrealistic. But then let's bring it back to this every day. Jodi, who in the heck are you comparing yourself to? I interview all these amazing people. Just in the month of August, right? We stepped onto the campus of Asbury University to an incredible leader at the Asbury Equine Program, and then met with someone who is a tremendous marketing professional that has married her marketing career and passion with her love and passion for horses. We visited with an incredible young vet tech who is newly married and working at one of the most thriving equine clinics in the country. And then we came back to Kentucky and we met with Danielle, who is a consultant and an expert in horse and human behavior and an insurance agent. And so I say all those things not only to celebrate those four incredible women that we have heard from this month, but also to say that that makes it a little bit easier for me to say, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. Like maybe I want to be a vet tech. I should have done that. Maybe I want to work at a university. I love students and recruiting and bringing people into a program that I truly believe in. I should have done that. Right. So there's that word should, and we'll come back to that. The entrepreneur in Denise that has really built that successful business. Well, guess what, Jodi? She's 10 years ahead of you. And so it's okay that you're not quite there. And she can become a mentor and an inspiration to you, not a comparison to you. And then Danielle, I can't even begin to think about being as smart and intelligent as she is, as she talks about the neuroscience of the brain, not only with humans, but also with horses. And again, I just want to acknowledge that that is what sometimes leads me down this spiral of saying I'm not good enough and I'm not doing everything that God has asked me to do. I don't like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Who am I talking to? What should I be doing? So there it is, the word should. What should you be doing? Well, I should be being Jodi. I should be being a better version of Jodi today than I was yesterday. Am I working to inspire others? Am I working to really acknowledge and understand what my purpose is? What does God intend for me to do with my time and my talents and my treasures? That's what I need to be focused on, and that's what I need to be doing. And what do I want to be more of? I don't want to be more like someone. I want to be more Jodi, more authentically me. I have focused this year a lot on being more of 9 things, the fruit of the spirit, if you will. I want to be more joyful. I want to show more love to other people. I want to practice more peace. And by that, I mean peace over perfection. And I want to be a more patient person. I want to be a kinder person always. And I want to be compassionate and good and faithful and all of those things. I want to have greater self control. That one I don't want to forget. More gentleness, more self control. That's something that I'm really practicing. Those are the things that I can compare to, because while I am focused on being more, I can compare myself to yesterday's version or last year's version of me. One of the pieces of advice was always measure backward. When we are well focused on growing from a personal growth and development perspective, we're focused on measuring backward. So if I'm going to measure my acknowledgement, my understanding, and my growth in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, and self control, those 9 things, I can measure 6 months ago or measure a year ago. And so always measure backwards with who you are becoming and what your goals are, not that I'm comparing myself to someone else because I want to be smarter and I want to be more like that person, or I want to look more like that person. I'm not strong enough. I need to work out more. Are we measuring ourselves compared to ourselves, or are you measuring yourself compared to other people? So, the good side, so we talked about that, the comparison that leads to unhappiness and jealousy, and the word should. What should you be? I think that we need to acknowledge how often we are saying, I should be dot, dot, dot. What should you be actually? Can you answer that question in a quiet space by writing it down, not by looking or scrolling or comparing ourselves to others? So, those are the negatives that might be associated with the disease that I call comparisonitis. But let's look at it from the positive side. We are going to compare ourselves. And so let's acknowledge when it's productive. If we are comparing ourselves in order to grow from within, as we talked about, you heard how I want to grow to be a better Jodi today than I was yesterday. How do you want to grow? I will challenge you to think about, how do you want to grow? And when that fosters inspiration, then we are seeing a productive comparison. So if we are finding people who inspire us, who motivate us, I want to focus on, again, my 3 pillars. Am I comparing myself with other people who inspire me, who give me greater clarity, give me greater confidence, and give me greater connections? That's the end of the day for me. Am I comparing myself to others who inspire and motivate me to gain greater clarity, greater confidence, and greater connections? That is when we see comparison in a positive and productive manner. And so we want to be more from a growth from within perspective. So that's kind of the 2 ways that I look at comparison, that we always want to be comparing ourselves to ourselves and measuring backwards and avoiding the pit that is social media type comparison. So, with that said, let's jump over to my 5 tips for combating and acknowledging, even more so, acknowledging where in our lives and when we are comparing ourselves. And so the first thing is, I'm going to say this, you're going to groan, we're all going to groan. We have to limit social media. We have to. And there's more and more research. I've had a couple of guests on, one guest in particular, I think it was 2 months ago or so. And she is creating tools to get her children and your children off of social media. And we know the benefits that come from limiting our time spent scrolling social media. And one of the pieces of advice that I'll never forget is, are you creating content or are you consuming content? And when you really put that into perspective and start to use that phone that we all have in our hands, and use the tools that are there to acknowledge how much time we're spending on social media because our phone tells us, and B, set some limits on that. If that is really something that you're finding that you spend too much time on, Maybe especially as we head into the colder months of the year, we spend a little bit more time inside, a little bit more time in darkness. And here we are on social media scrolling, kind of the death scroll. All of a sudden, 45 minutes have gone by. Friends, we have to limit social media. And oftentimes that takes an accountability partner or an accountability team, whatever that looks like. Who's your circle? Who's your tribe? Let's start talking about these things. How much time are you spending on social apps on your phone? And is that enough? Is it too much? So, number one piece of advice is I want you to quantify how much time you're spending on social media and make a decision about how much time is effective and productive for you. What does that look like in your life? And is that affecting how you feel about your own self? Is it affecting your self-esteem? Okay, so that's number one. Number two is as we compare, I want to know if you are comparing yourself to the highlight reel, as we call it, of someone else's life whom you do not know. So think about that. Are you comparing yourself to the actors and athletes and whatever else out there? Are you comparing yourself with people who live a completely different life than we do? And if so, again, I think we need to check who we are comparing ourselves to. When we have an amazing tribe of people around us or a circle of people, quite frankly, when we cultivate our social media and our real life in person relationships, we should have people around us who motivate and inspire us. Those are the people that we can see productive and positive comparison from that we talked about. People who inspire and motivate us to grow and to gain clarity and confidence and connections in our life, to be more kind or loving or whatever it is that we're choosing to be. I want you to really check how many people you're comparing yourself to or whose content you are consuming who you do not know. So you truly are seeing their highlight reel because you don't know them from an inside perspective. You don't know their heart. You don't know really what their values are and those kinds of things. Be cautious of how many people who you do not know you are spending time comparing your life to and consuming their content, and choose maybe otherwise. But make sure you understand and acknowledge that balance. And you are comparing yourself to people who you do know and you value and who motivate and inspire you. So that's number two. Who are the people you are comparing to? Number three, how many of you are practicing gratitude? Gratitude. Guys, I'll be real honest with you. This has even been a conversation with my husband this year of, at times where we can be frustrated with one another that I'm like, I'm going to choose to say something really nice about you and something that I love about you. And the more of those things that we do, the less comparison and negativity we experience. When we practice gratitude, and this has become huge the past couple years, gratitude journals, get on it on Amazon or wherever, go to your local bookstore, grab yourself a gratitude journal, whatever that looks like. But I will tell you, when you start saying thank you and I appreciate you, genuinely sharing that with other people, when you are sitting down with your friends for coffee or lunch or whatever it is, are you practicing gratitude? Are you telling people you appreciate them, you appreciate their time, you appreciate their energy, and are you saying thank you for them being them? Or are we immediately going into talking about other people, discussing other people, comparing ourselves with other people? That's number three. I want you to practice more gratitude. Acknowledge during the day when you are seeing a stranger or someone that you know, and where you can say, thank you. Thank you for holding that door for me. Thank you for being you. Thank you for taking the time to spend 5 minutes on the phone with me. Thank you. Every time you are able to say the words thank you and I appreciate you, it changes how we feel about ourselves. Period. It makes us feel better. Practice gratitude. Number four, we've talked about these words, but I want to break it down because I want you to really start thinking about this. I want you to define how you are inspired, and I want you to define how you are comparing. So if you are defining who you are inspired by, you are inspired to change for the better. Who is inspiring you to change for the better? And then on the other hand, I also want you to acknowledge and even write down who you are comparing yourself to that makes you feel that you are somehow not enough. Okay, think about that. Write that down, acknowledge it as you're scrolling. If that's a challenge you're having on social media, if that's a challenge you're having when you're walking around and you're seeing people and you're like, oh, they're skinnier than I am, they're prettier than I am, they're stronger than I am, they're better than I am, they're smarter than I am, whatever it is, those are the comparisons we want to acknowledge and start to eliminate, work through them, talk about with your trusted advisor pals, your tribe, your team, your champions. We want to really start to gravitate toward people and environments where we are inspired to change and serve others, not where we are comparing and feeling as if we're not enough. All right, so that's number 4. Number 5, I want you to celebrate other people. I think we're not celebrating life enough. You've heard me talk about this before. I think we need to be in community. We need to be celebrating life. That doesn't mean we have to always just go out and get drinks. We're seeing a lot more of the opportunities that we're saying, you know what, we don't need to go out and get cocktails and drinks. I love to do that, but we can meet for breakfast. We can have a Bible study. We can meet for lunch and for dinner, and we can go play games, adult kickball. We can do whatever, but it comes down to celebrating other people. It is a little bit different than gratitude. I know practicing gratitude, I listed as number 3. Celebrating other people, celebrating yourself, celebrating life, really taking some time to play off of devices and social media, but to be outside or in communion with other people. That is the real key to celebrating others and bringing ourselves some of that joy that we only get from community. So, a couple of recounts. First, a quote: "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." I love Eleanor Roosevelt. There are a lot of quotes of hers that I use and rely on, but no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And I want to give you that power back. I needed to be reminded of it. I'm sharing that with you today. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So the 5 tips that I have for us today are: A, limit your social media. Go in, figure out how much time you're spending, and decide on purpose with intention how much time is too much. Number 2, avoid comparing highlights to people you don't know. So acknowledge who you are comparing yourself to. Is it people whom you know and trust and are inspired and motivated by? Those are the people that we want to be seeing more of, whether it's in real life or on social media. And so acknowledge who those people are and eliminate and curate your feed if necessary and needed. Number 3, practice gratitude. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening to the Thriving Equine Professional. I have so much fun doing this podcast and hearing from each of you as listeners. I love to continue to inspire you and share life with you. I appreciate you as listeners. Practice that gratitude. It makes all the difference in the world. Number 4, I want you to define being inspired in order to grow and change versus comparing in order that you are feeling not enough. So define what inspires you versus what is a comparison that makes you feel like you are not enough. And really start to focus on moving toward inspiration and motivation and the people that bring that to you. Number 5, celebrate. Celebrate others, celebrate yourself, and celebrate life. It's the most important thing that we get out and play, because we should all be working hard and playing hard. That is what we are intended to do. We should be doing those things in community. find your people, love your people, grow, do the things. And so the final quote that I will end with today is, it is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. So I just love those words because it is so important today in what is going on around us, the noise of what we're dealing with, whether you are a student or you are a young professional or otherwise. It is not our differences that are dividing us. It is our inability to recognize, to accept, and to celebrate those differences. So with that, Thrivers, if you are not caught up on the episodes of the Thriving Equine Professional, please go back and do so. There's been some amazing episodes here in August, and we've got more to come, a pretty good lineup. And I'll also go ahead and give a shout out. I am on the search for some new friends in their 20s. I really want to start to get some younger Thrivers on here as guests. So if you've got some suggestions for me, shoot them my way. Anyone in animal health and equine that are just a few years maybe out of that student to professional transition and they are out here doing their first job, please send them my way, because those are the next goal of mine in really highlighting some early career Thrivers, and no one better to do so than my current Thrivers. So hook me up and send me some names. Get with me on LinkedIn or social media or through my website at www.jodispeakslife.com. So with that, Thrivers, happy end of summer. Enjoy your Labor Day holiday. Spend time with the people that you love and celebrate life. And I will see you back here same time next week with our next awesome guest on the Thriving Equine Professional. Cheers.